So welcome, Henry Arlander,
Thank you.
VP of Integrated Creative at Manscaped.
Yes.
You have an amazing background, so no one has to look it up. You started your career in the agency world, specifically Goodby, Perodel. That's where you got some of your chops, but then you shifted over and built an in-house agency at Keurig/Dr. Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
You took all that knowledge and then you move that over to where you are now at Manscaped and developed basically a similar model.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that model of bringing in creative in-house as the guide to everything you're doing allows for a lot of consistency. So we're going to get into that and we're going to talk a little bit. I'm Yak. I'm going to be the host for the day. Thank you very much for spending the time. I'm head of creative innovation strategy at Captiv8, which is now Influential, powered by Captiv8. So definitely more on the creator influencer side. So we'll kind of play a little bit on both. Fair enough?
Sounds great.
All right. For everybody who's playing at home, we're going to cover off on 4 or 5, maybe 6 different topics from creativity to brand safety and see how many things we can hit on. If there's anything we miss or anything we want to dive into more, reach out to us and we'll lean in and answer as many questions as we can. Fair?
Sounds great.
All right. So let's start with challenging norms. You told me a great story about the founding of Manscaped and the idea that first things first, finding a white space, a need in the marketplace was really important. And then the idea of shifting and evolving from that to a place where now you are challenging the incumbents and those who are been part of that space for so long. And so challenging norms is a very deep part of Manscaped and part of your ethos. Why is that the case? Why is it it's one thing to jump into a space and say, we got to do this because that's how we're going to start. It's another thing to hold on to it and realize that's part of your ethos moving forward in everything you do. I'd love if you go a little bit into why that is the case and how that powers so many things that you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it all started very naturally. Our visionary founder, Paul Tran, he basically just noticed that this behavior was happening. So men were grooming down there and they were taking whatever they had around the house, like a beard trimmer or hair clippers or, their disposable blue razor and just having a terrible experience. So he thought to himself, what if we created the right tool for the job? And enter the lawnmower, which is it's a groin trimmer with skin-safe technology, so you won't get nicks and cuts. It's waterproof, so you can do it in the shower for easy cleanup, and it has an LED light, so you can see what you're doing. So very simple innovations, but made a big difference. And so that was the first step, was creating the right product for that gap. The second thing was the tone of voice. So grooming, it's been around forever, and you have this, masculinity, traditional masculinity, and how that's come across in communications over many years. But we just wanted to talk to men the way that they talk. And so we made funny ads that they would share because, again, nobody was talking about groin grooming. No one was saying, how do you trim your balls? It's kind of a weird thing to bring up with your friends. But they would share our ads and they'd say, check out this funny Manscaped ad. So, and that would go in a group chat. And all of a sudden, you've got all the guys weighing in, not realizing that they're now talking about groin grooming, So that's how we started challenging norms, was basically the right product and the right tone that created shareability and got people talking about Manscaped, the brand, and what we offer.
One of the things you mentioned in our conversation was the importance of bringing trust to this conversation, specifically because coming from a kind of a digital brand, if you will, starting with digital and social, there's some hiccups with other brands who you now are being compared with, who may not have delivered on the promise.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and then how you use kind of creators to make that happen. If you could touch on that a little bit, I think that's a fascinating element.
Yeah. So we started direct to consumer, and a lot of brands have. And I think, direct to consumer brands or digital first brands, like they needed to stop the scroll and, really stand out in a digital space. And so you have some really amazing looking products. You have amazing promises being made in, Instagram ads and things. And I've impulse bought plenty of products.
All of us have. I
Yeah.
guarantee everyone watching is like, yep, done it at least once or twice.
Totally. And some of them fall short of expectations. And that was one thing is we put a lot of effort, time, resources into our products. They're premium tier products, high quality. But, when up next to some of these other brands, you might say, like, is Manscaped a social media brand?
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that we found a lot of success with influencers and podcasts was people that could relay, that had trusted communities that could relay the message that this is the real deal. These are great products. And I use the lawnmower, and it's been a great experience. And they pass that on to their communities, from macro to micro influencers, and it's made a huge impact for us. So
I feel like those who buy from social, I would consider those like experts, people that do this on a regular basis.
Mhm.
The one thing I think is clear is the homework and the research done leveraging creators. So who in my community that I follow
Yes.
would say that that is a product, right? Not the brand ad itself on social, but is there somebody I trust, right? And so
Exactly.
I do that a lot simply because I'm in the space. But I've learned that having been burnt, that if I can't find somebody that I connect with somewhere who will say, "Yep, that's a great product," then I question. I'm like, well, then why is that the case? And then I think, well, maybe I'm eating my own dog food because this is what I do all day long.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that that's part of that whole trust and authenticity that you've clearly leaned into, and it has made a big difference.
Trust is essential. Trust is essential. That's the main thing that's helped us get from having this great digital promise that people see, when they see our ads, to actually, should I buy this? Relying on someone in the community that they trust.
So let's shift back for a second to this idea of challenging norms and over to the power of pushing the envelope. So from a creative perspective, if everyone has not seen Send Pics Instead, it's such a powerful story. Not just the creative, we've talked about this, but I think that I do believe, I mean this sincerely, that you've captured, it's like a unicorn, the ability to say, we're going to stop the scroll and deliver entertainment. We're going to find a cultural need and provide value to that community. And the product itself is going to bring value to you. That is a amazing trifecta. If you could jump in and walk through that campaign, how it started, and including the way that your team internally partnered with an external agency and then took it internally and what they did with it. I think that entire story is incredibly fascinating.
Great, yeah. And I wish we could take credit for architecting all those things you mentioned. I think there's always a little bit of luck. But yeah, we were very deliberate and thoughtful about how we would approach this. Manscaped started as a single product in the US, direct to consumer. And now, fast forward 9 years, we have dozens of products, from tools to formulations to apparel. And we're available in 40 countries around the world. And we're omni-channel. So retail is actually our biggest channel, followed by Amazon, and then D2C, still a significant part, but it's really reshaped, our approach. So shifting from one product that was a clear white space into, a space that has these legacy players that have been around, and they have tools that we're going up against that are tried and true and have a loyal base. Established. And, we're still a private company. And so we really needed to punch above our weight. And what we did was we partnered with an agency called Special Group, and they brought a really amazing core idea for the campaign. And it leveraged where we'd been with ball grooming to trampoline into something that we have a lot of products for, which is the face. So face shave. And so essentially, we wanted to tap into a cultural tension that people were sending dick pics. We wanted to understand why and see if we could connect with people and be on the right side of it. And so the campaign is send face pics instead, which makes sense for the products that we offer.
Genius.
But I think what was really great about it was this was happening. It's something that everybody has some level of experience with. It's traumatic for people that receive, and we wanted to be respectful of that. So what we did was first we started researching it, and what can we learn about this topic. We found that there is KPU, Canadian University, that they have the leading researchers on dick pics. That's a thing. That is an area of study. And so we partnered with their orgasm lab. That's what it's called. And they're so incredible. They know this topic inside and out. And they helped us understand that essentially most men are sending these pictures not for malicious reasons. It's actually just like the wildest disconnect that they think this is going to be seen as attractive, that it'll be a positive thing. Maybe they'll get something in return. And then, from the female perspective, like pretty much 0% of women want to receive these unsolicited. So wild disconnect. And what we wanted to do is bring that topic out into the open, educate on it in a way that's consistent with our tone, funny, but also still respectful, because it is, it is a difficult thing for the people that receive them. So that's what we did, and we launched the campaign, and it hit that cultural tension. One of our assets went viral. It has like 60 million views. It's our most viral piece of content in Manscaped's history. And, I credit that to just really hitting the right balance on that tension, to something that was shareable and interesting and felt authentic to people who know the topic.
It does it. I've seen the piece. It does such a great job of disarming the audience. And so it's not judgmental. It's not pointing out a problem. It's, hey, let's think about this but in a humorous way that really brings you through this great story. By the end, you're like, yeah, that makes more sense. Like, look at the positive that comes out of sharing a face pic.
Right.
Right. Like, if the point of the exercise is to share and to get something back and to find a connection, this works great. Yeah. Right. I wanted to share this because I think this is so fascinating. If you could talk a little bit about the conversation and the relationship you ended up having with the Save the Children group, I think that's really interesting. And then I want to read a quote that came from one of their chief officers.
Yeah. So we don't have a formal relationship with them. I think that this talks to the power of the idea and the shareability of the content that was created, is that it somehow, came across, their screens, and the head of innovation for Save the Children International posted on LinkedIn why it's so important for teenagers to see this content.
I will. I think so. Maggie Cord is her name. She's the Chief Innovation Officer at Save the Children International, and she wrote a post about this and named 3 points that she loves about the video. And I'm just going to read the last one because I think it's very powerful. So, it non-judgmentally shows youth might be misinformed about how to connect with girls online. A better way to find a meaningful connection. In other words, it non-judgmentally shows youth a better way to find a meaningful connection, but it does it in this way that is both disarming, finds a space that is clearly a need, but somehow still delivers humor, somehow still delivers a message that is important to the brand itself. Like, hey, we are a face brand as well, right? So now you are coming at your competitors from not a perspective of like ours is better for these reasons, but we have a story to tell. And I think that when you put all that together and you see that video and you see what the impact from somebody who you were not targeting at all and you didn't build a relationship with, it tells you the impact that it has. And that's why I think it's such a unicorn, because to be able to accomplish all of those things, that'd be great. If I could do it every campaign, it'd be amazing, but that's not always the case. And so to be able to do that, super powerful.
Yeah. We talk about measures of success, and of course we have our brand metrics and we have our sales goals. But to see something like that post, or the conversation that people are having online about this ad, I couldn't ask for anything more than that, because we wanted to generate conversation, and it's done that. So it's been really exciting. Something that we also uncovered with our partnership with KPU is that people that send face pics instead of dick pics are 9 times more likely to get a positive response. So there's real benefit actually to sending a face pic instead of a dick pic. It's not really an anti-dick pic message. Yeah, it's a pro face pic message.
What are you trying to accomplish? And if it's to create a connection, then here's a better way to do it.
Exactly.
You mentioned the idea that some of this might be a little luck, and I get that, but I do think it's deliberate, it's thoughtful, it's strategic and planned. So you spent some time building out a huge library of assets. Walk through what that plan was and how you relayed that to your management team. So it wasn't, we're going to go this direction and we're going to pick 5 assets. We're going to come at this from a different perspective to keep ourselves open to opportunity.
Absolutely. I give a lot of credit to our CMO, Marcelo Cortez. He talks about something that he calls consistent fragmentation. So it's having a core singular message, but that can be expressed in lots of different ways, different formats, different styles. And you put that out there, to try to learn and understand and see what is going to hit. Of course, we had our hunches of, we think this is going to be the thing, this is going to be the hero asset. And there were some things we put a lot more dollars into, and some things that we were just trying, essentially trying to place bets. And what we found was the main hero asset did very well. Like in testing, it scored the best for changing perceptions. It was from a female point of view, so that's like another interesting way we can talk about this topic. And that's running and it's doing very well. But the asset that went crazy viral was it was developed by a couple of film students at USC who, we shared the send face pics core idea and said, what would you do with it? And they came back and they created this like charming story, heartwarming, and delivers the message in a different way, but one that's just really resonating with people. So I think that idea of consistent fragmentation and we created hundreds of assets to see, what's going to stick. And now we're sort of on the second phase of it, which is, okay, we had some learnings. Now let's lean into that and let's keep creating.
I would strongly encourage everybody to take a look at that video. Is there a couple keywords that would allow everybody to find it?
Yes, it's called Post-Pick Clarity.
Post-Pick Clarity.
From Manscaped.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. Consistent fragmentation.
That's right.
I love that. To me, that's exactly the value of creators, right? So that you can pick one, pick 2, pick 3, and tell a singular message. Or you can think about the idea that creators, especially if when they have 100K followers, are really curating a community and specific passion points. And so bringing a general theme or direction, allowing them to build off of it, that's consistent fragmentation. You don't know how it's going to all come out, but that's the huge opportunity in front of you if you're willing to take that leap.
Absolutely.
So let's shift to the next topic around creativity. So um, obviously you and I agree on this. The importance of creativity is critical in everything we do. But how do you look at creativity? How do you measure that in terms of when you are building? So there's so many aspects in the spectrum. There's stopping the scroll. There's being relevant. There's following trends. There's making sure we find a white space. There's delivering actual value from a product perspective. So as you are thinking through this with your team, and you're like, all right, we have to figure out what direction we're going to go. How do you weigh those and decide? You can't do them all at equal levels. It'd be great if you could, but it's not always the case. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, it's a great question. With creativity, at Manscaped, what we're tasked with is solving business problems. And so we look to creativity because there are a million ways to solve a problem, but we're interested in the ones that are going to have, be surprising and unexpected and push off what the category is going to do and really essentially lead to step change, not incremental growth, but real significant change. And I think that's what creativity can unlock. Um, when we look at a number of solutions on the table, we're measuring it against what's the problem, what's the brief, what parameters do we have to work with? Because I think parameters, the box can actually be very helpful to know, like, what are the limitations that we need to work with in order to get to a really crisp solution. So I think all those things are taken into account. And then ultimately, does it feel on brand? Does it feel like something Manscaped would say? Does it carry on our heritage of challenging norms? Because that's something that helped us get to where we are, and something we don't want to lose.
So I didn't hear any of that. I didn't hear scroll stopping. I didn't hear a lot of the traditional things that I see in briefs, for example. What I hear is one, the importance of being true to your ethos, in this case, challenging norms, right? So step
That's right.
change to solve a specific business challenge, but stay within the expectation that you've created for your audience. And if you can do all those things, however that comes out,
That's right.
then that's what moves the needle. And so they're going to play different roles based on that, not based on we want to singularly stop scroll because we think that's the solution to the problem.
Exactly. Because if you're focused mainly on stopping the scroll, that's only half the battle, or if that. Because what are you going to say to them once you've got them stopped?
Yeah.
You got to make sure that is like the most powerful piece.
Agreed. Let's move this into from a creator perspective. So obviously this is something I spend a lot of time on. The way you work with creators from a creativity perspective, where does that come from? Where are you starting with a direction in mind? Are you thinking about creators? And the backstory here for everybody is that marketing at Manscaped started as a bottom of the funnel exercise to drive sales. And then that has evolved to a place where now you embrace the entire funnel.
That's
and and all stages have a really important place. So you value all elements of the stage. And so you and I talked about the fact that creator can actually touch on all of those. So what does that look like? How does that work? And where do you bring in creators to make sure you're identifying the different levels of the funnel that you want to hit?
Yeah, it's a real like communication strategy task of who do we want to hit with what message and where in the funnel does it make sense. Creators have been a big part of our marketing strategy since the beginning, and our partnership with creators has evolved along with that. So now when we have these brand messages, as we're trying to shape and change perceptions, we definitely lean on creators to help us do that, to talk to their audience about why they should send face pics instead. And then, of course, when we get to certain periods where, like a sale period, like holiday, where we want to drive sales, it's more immediate, and there's a value play, then we shift the message to that. And so it's really a disciplined marketing approach now for full funnel of making sure we're getting people in and going down the funnel, and creators play a role in that every step of the way.
Including the retail experience specifically, right?
That's right.
So it's not just brand. You drive sales through. I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball at you for a second.
Okay.
How does that look when you start thinking about partnerships? And I mean that in two ways. One, you're seeing collabs all over the place, right? So we've done a bunch. Travis Kelce's a great example of that. But you see that with the Devontae Adams and Taco Bell. You see that at Lululemon. There's the importance and the value. Dunkin' Donuts has done it. So there's great value there. And then the idea of partnering with another brand. So if I took this to a step that might make you tweak a little bit, the idea of maybe partnering with a dating app and being like, hey, we're going to educate everybody on the fact that face pics work better.
Yes.
Right. So how do you bring in, and where would you look at partnerships from both a creator and another brand perspective as you're doing this, so it doesn't feel like it's just a kitschy exercise? You're like, I'm just trying to find additional PR, but an actual value add.
Yeah, I think that's a great example with a dating app for face pics. So really, I think we look at partnerships, one with like what aligns with the brand, and that could be, we did a partnership with Dude Wipes, and so that's sort of like doubling down on our humor and our target. And then you can also look at partnerships as a way to unlock a new audience. So maybe it's something a little unexpected. So that's something we're also exploring to bring in new customers into the funnel. With dating apps, we actually did partner with Tinder for Send Face Pics instead, because this is where people are sending a lot of dick pics. So it just made sense to be there. So they've been a great partner. And what I would say is like, so that it's either on the brand level or a level down to the campaign. So what is the message that we want to get out in the world? And then who are the partners that make sense in an authentic way to help us convey that message?
Yeah, I think that's the trick, right? So the ability to look at this and go, yes, that might drive PR, but is that actually going to bring us the additional value? So it's not a PR exercise.
Exactly.
It's a value prop exercise for both the brand and the audience. I think that's
right.
That when you see them work really well, it's typically because everyone's been thinking through, is this going to be something our audience is actually going to benefit from?
Absolutely. One of my senseis in a previous life, when I worked at Pereira Odell, PJ Pereira would talk about having a dual ROI. So there needs to be an ROI on the investment that the brand is putting in, but there needs to be an equal return on investment for the time that consumers are spending with your content.
100%.
So what's in it for consumers? And that's something that we keep top of mind when we come up with campaigns and creative solutions.
And by doing that, you've also avoided the typical trap of, we're going to just use discounts as our means to an end, right? To get value, because then you end up going to the bottom, if you will.
That's right.
And that only works for a short period of time. So this idea of bringing value that's higher than that, super important to keeping your audience coming back. And
100%. You're right.
So when we were talking, one of the things that I got caught doing was a little bit of fanboying. I was like, oh God, how great would it be to be able to work on a brand and work with management that wants to be on the edge, that wants to take chances and take risks and all of that. And so as we're talking about brand safety and we're talking about compliance, I fell into that easy place where I was like, oh, that's great. And then I started thinking about that, and I realized, well, actually now you are flirting with risk in a much more significant way, because you don't know, and you have to be okay with the unknown and the potential. So in my opinion, you have to work twice as hard on the brand safety. So walk through that a little bit and what that requires, because I think on the outside, most marketers would really appreciate the opportunity to be risk-taking.
Right.
But it's not one-sided.
Yeah. I think we're lucky in that that's part of the foundation and the DNA of Manscaped is that kind of content helped us grow in the beginning. So now what we do is it's actually a very like disciplined and thoughtful approach to brand safety, we want to be on the edge. We want to talk like, our competitors aren't talking. We want to talk like men do talk. And we want to be on the edge. So we're resonating, in a real way with what's going on in culture, but we don't want to step over and we don't want to go too far. So how do you do that? We do a lot of talking to consumers. We do a lot of testing, and it's not testing to tell us what we should do. It's to uncover what are the kernels that are interesting to the people we want to talk to. What are the red flags? Okay, let's not go there. Yeah. And so we talk with our rabid fans. They're called the Ballers. They're, we have a Facebook group of the Ballers, and they're just amazing Manscaped fans that we can bounce anything off of, all the way to people that have kind of written us off, and everyone in between, female gift givers, lapsed buyers, and we're always trying to understand, where we can play, what's interesting to them. And with Send Face Pics instead, we did that right at the beginning, at the concept level, to say like, okay, what can we learn about this issue? So we did that. We produced the ads. We did it again, and just to make sure, like, this is what we intended. Is it coming out that way? And luckily it was. But these are all things, the learnings along the way helped us tweak our approach and the different pieces of content.
But that takes time.
Yes.
And money.
Yes.
So how in the world do you make that happen when typically we are talking about short windows of campaigns?
Yes.
We're talking about the expectation we're going to have a delivery that we can look at within days, if not weeks. Mm-hmm. And the shrinking budgets that typically exist in the world we're living in right now. So how in the world do you find a way to do that when what you just described takes mm-hmm. months? If you do it right. Now, it clearly works really well.
Yeah.
So there's a reason to do it. But how do you get to that point where you got the trust needed to pull it off?
I think that the trust internally comes from being very transparent about like our intentions, the risks we're taking. So we have a shared risk.
Yeah.
And say like, we think this topic is something that people will talk about. And here's our approach, and here are the risks of that. So we all entered into it knowing there was some risk. But again, we de-risked things too by talking with consumers, by testing. And so we went in with I guess you'd call it a comfortable level of risk.
Yeah.
That we were willing to take. And you can always change approach. And the sort of checks that we do, they don't take months. They don't take a lot of money. With our diehard fans, the Ballers, that's a Facebook group. So it could be as simple as like putting a post in the group and asking a question. So you can get a variety of different reads that can help inform your path to risk management.
Did that come before or after that campaign? What it was called, where there was a bunch of the guys, and every guy walking around had their twins.
The boys. Yes.
Was that? I'm curious. When did that come about? Was that something that happened early on?
Exactly. Yeah. With the boys, I think people were a little more comfortable because that was our sweet spot. Yeah. That was the kind of humor we were doing. It even elevated, I think, the humor from what we had been doing. So, and that resonated at more like upper funnel, like brand perception level. And so we loved that. And, but even with that, we wanted to make sure that this was something that people wouldn't find offensive, and people would find funny and would share. And so we did a similar method of just checking to make sure we were on the right track. Network clearance can be a challenge when you're playing on the edge. And it's something that we've learned is we probably won't get approved everywhere. So we need to have a strategy that mixes like TV and digital and a lot of different media approaches to getting our message out there. But if we're not pushing the edge when it gets to like the networks, then we're not sure if it's going far enough.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you're not seeing enough rejection, if you will, then you're not pushing enough. And does social help you there? Like make sure that, because
Yes.
that's much more comfortable. People are much more apt to be okay with certain messages versus.
Yes, social is critical for us. So we use social as a testing ground, where we can put out a lot of different assets and see what's starting to hit. And some things are inherently more social than others, but we see what we can learn about the message and even like nuances of the execution as we put it out, so that we can test in a pretty low stakes way before we fully invest.
Very cool. All right, well, let's finish off on the one thing we have not really talked about, which everyone else has been talking about for the last year and probably next year, AI. So it's here. It's going to continue to be here. I think that there's so much to AI. You and I agree that the efficiency and the scale that AI brings is very real, and that's kind of the easy part, if you will, right? Because we know that, right? If you set up your prompts correctly, if you have an agentic agent that you can build a brain around, you can deliver a lot. Obviously, on the tech side, it's huge. But when we talk about creative, it's a very interesting and slightly scary place for some, because what does that mean? Is it taking away from those who are creative? Is it adding? When do you think about leveraging AI for creative assets? And then let's take it a step further and think about it in terms of creators. And you and I have now seen brands who use AI creators, not real, which goes against this concept of authenticity and trust. And so, but it's here. So the idea of sticking your head in the sand is not going to work.
Right. There's a lot there.
A ton.
AI and creativity. And whatever we talk about now is going to be different in like 6 months.
We're going to redo this.
Yeah.
And watch what we did and be like, we were not good pundits, but it's all right. We'll get there.
Yeah. There's so much with AI and creativity. I feel like one great benefit is obviously getting to scale. So I see in creative exploration that you can just explore so many more areas more quickly than before. And then that makes it easier to narrow down. Like, okay, maybe these are the fertile territories with efficiency. So bringing down the cost and the time to get to what it is we want to do, and then how can we bring that to life. So it used to be we'd make like a Rip-O-Matic. Now you can make a whole ad in AI, for a fraction of the budget and a fraction of the time. So why not? And if you have something like social as a testing ground, then you can really start to test in real time and see like what's going to stick. So I think it unlocks a lot there. As it relates to AI creators, I'm honestly not sure yet. I think that there are some creators. There's an AI creator that's like getting signed, apparently. And so when I think of creators and how they've helped us, it's been about establishing trust and bringing authenticity to the message. And so I'm not sure how AI creators play into that, because it doesn't seem like that would bring the main benefits that we've seen from creators. But I'm curious what you think.
I think it's going to be a really interesting space. There's a technology now that allows us to also test from the same perspective. So, and that becomes curious. So, there's technologies out there that will actually look at creative and say, here's what's going to work, here's what's not going to work. And it can look at the entire ecosystem of Instagram or TikTok and then pull out based on objectives, based on tone and voice, based on all these different things. This is the kind of asset that's going to work. Add another cat into that and it's going to work better. Do this, do that, and it's going to work better. And so whether we like it or not, AI is having a massive impact on the creative, whether it's coming from a creator or whether we start playing around in this space, which is AI creator. I think the fun part is going to be who's willing to take the risk and what audience can you set up your audience properly, because they're going to evolve over time. So whatever they're not comfortable with now, they may be comfortable with 6 months or a year from now,
Right.
based on the fact they've seen it enough times. Like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
And so who's willing to take those risks? Who's developed an audience who is comfortable with those risks? And if you can do that, and I don't think you walk away from like, hey, we're going to walk away from creators completely because it costs more money. We're going to just do AI creators like that. I think that would be jolting for most brand audiences. But where could you play? What brands have the luxury because they've developed an audience that feels like, yep, I'm willing to take this ride with you.
Absolutely.
And that'll be the fun part. And we're going to
be.
see some hiccups. We're going to see some people brands stub their toes in the process. And then we're all going to learn from that.
Yes, it'll balance
It'll all
out.
balance out.
That's
and
right.
I don't think it's a right or wrong. I think it's a balance. I think it's
a balance.
We're going to continue on this path, and we're going to go a little too high, a little too low, and we'll find a balance at some point.
Absolutely. I also think there's something interesting about like what's the role of a creative in this new AI creative world, and I see it as a curator. So now you have tools to help increase the scale of your ideas, even your production. So you have a lot more options now. So we've already seen it where the AI slop is all over the place, and we're just going to be flooded with content. So who's going to step in and curate and say, these are the best versions of that in a business setting will help us reach our business goals, that will resonate with consumers. And I think that is the next step. And there's a huge role for creative people.
And the more we train the best and brightest to be those curators who can lean in, those are the ones that curate the best, because they've been doing it for so long and they're so good at it. And so it's an input-output thing. You and I agree on that. I think that it's not hey, I'm just going to plug this in and see what happens. It requires that skill set and that experience. It says, I've done this a long time. I'm just going to partner to get that result. So fascinating. I could do this for another hour. Thank you very, very much for the time.
Thank you.
It's been great.
This is great.
Appreciate it.